This is a Now Magazine podcast.
Hey, Toronto, and welcome to Now What? I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and I'm also your host for this podcast, coming to you every Friday with the news and culture stories we think you need to hear. In this week's paper, I talked to Ronnie Rowe Jr. and Muna Traore, two of the leads of the new CBC drama The Porter, which tells the stories of the events that led to the formation of the first black workers' union when railroad sleeping car porters in the 1920s organized for better working conditions. The show premieres Monday, February 21st at 9 p.m. on CBC and CBC Gem, and for this companion podcast, I got to discuss it with its creative team. Arnold Pinnock, who initiated the project, Annmarie Morais and Marsha Greene, the showrunners who developed the series, and Charles Officer and RT Thorne, who directed it, to explore the genesis of the show and what it meant to the people who made it.
I'm Arnold Pinnock, one of the co-creators and co-executive producers of the show.
Hi, I'm Annmarie Morais. I am one of the co-showrunners and producers of this series.
Marsha Greene. I'm one of the co-showrunners and co-executive producers of The Porter.
Hi, I'm Charles Officer. I am one of the directors and co-executive producers of The Porter.
And I am RT Thorne, and I'm one of the directors and co-executive producers of The Porter.
I know that the evolution of the story, Ronnie was saying that Arnold, you've been working on this for 13 years. And I know that it was a long road, but how did it get where it is? Like, how did it become the show that it is? And how hard is that? Like, how hard is that to find that tone and that approach and the breadth of experience that goes into all of it? Sorry, it's a really long, loaded question. And I don't even know where to start.
I think when we talk about like the tone and the breadth of the project, I think now we're talking about a team effort. You know, this is when you talk about the tone, you're talking about, Annmarie putting her stamp on it and Marsha putting a stamp on it, and then of course Charles and RT. I mean, I think from the get-go, team-wise, there was a conscious effort to showcase the wins and as opposed to the downs. But I also believe with every upbeat, there is a downbeat. You know, when you see people dancing and praying and the Holy Spirit, it's because they go through a lot of shit, right? So they need those avenues and those safe havens in order to take off the layers of armor that they have to survive, throughout the day, and then come to a safe avenue like the church or the nightclub to be able to express themselves freely. So yes, we may not be showcasing all of the downbeats, so to speak, that, I guess traditionally one might see, but there's a flip coin to that.
Waiting to see if Annmarie was going.
No, I mean, I think Arnold has really captured it pretty well, but we're all trying to create, and I'm so glad that it felt like those relationships were natural and they didn't feel like scripted, plot pieces, because that's always the aim. You just want to fill the characters with blood and spirit, and that's part of their talent and their gift as cast, especially Alfre and Muna bring their own life and breath. All of our cast does bring their own life and breath to what's on the page, and so it's been a good marriage.
I would say just on the cast side, there was some magical, because we were all experiencing something that we really truly haven't experienced before in our working experiences, such as, actors that have actually known each other or respect each other and actually found a way to actually play together. And some, didn't know each other, but there was, I think, because there was this understanding that this was, this Black story, and we're coming in to play our part in it, that there was a beautiful shorthand that existed. And I think when actors are getting together and they have to have this sort of backstory in this relationship, and they've only spent, they've just met, especially in COVID right now. I think that armor that Arnold's talking about was also released as folks kind of entered this project, in order to be open, like, Ronnie and Amel, and often when you have male leads in other projects, there's this competitiveness that goes through. Competitiveness I saw that actually happened was more around elevation, and the way that Alfre took Muna under her wing. I would say truly a wing. And nurture this talented young woman that I think she sees part of herself in, and it was really cool to see that actually happen, and it was hard work because we had to figure a lot out very quickly. But I think that it speaks to the talented group that we were blessed to that kind of synergized and came together for this project, and it's almost like there was this unwritten contract that we all were aware of in a certain way, that we had to find a way to collaborate in a way that was unique and new and hard and challenging, but we never gave up on each other. Is something that I thought was pretty powerful.
Well, can we talk about the challenges? How do you make a period piece set a century ago about people recovering? This is something that Ronnie and Luna were talking about as well. It's a period piece a century earlier about people who are recovering from a pandemic and a war and devastation, and expressing the release of anxiety, I think is how she put it, that they're coming out of this thing and we're still in it. And you're definitely in it when you're shooting in face masks and shields and constantly aware of it all. So yeah, how does that go?
I think you can start from the story side and sort of work our way forward from the story side. It's a lot to navigate in terms of, what aspects of a history you're capturing, because, we're spanning a lot of years, mm-hmm. and we're trying to sort of collapse some things. And I think having Marsha and I just sort of be on the same page about, we wanted to be true to what we knew of characters historically, what we knew of the time, even if we had to sort of move dates or collapse things around. So we're always trying to echo what we feel and experience, sort of as Black people living in the world today, and through our lens and through our eyes. So I think there are challenges in stories, sort of picking the moments to feel like that pressure that we experience, or the breaking points for our characters, and trying to capture the moments of joy and how we were going to navigate the brotherhood. So we had a great room, but you were making a lot of decisions daily. And then you realize, Marsha likes to say, how much story you have when you start to navigate into production and post, that you're like, oh, we've got a lot of story going on. We've got a lot of people that we've got to service.
Yeah, it's incredibly, I think it's partially like there were two things that were very unique about this experience. One was the amount of time that I shouldn't say it's maybe not that unique, but because we were in development for so long, you're reading the scripts over and over again. You're thinking about, you're researching, you're finding out more things and whatever. And so, of course, we had the desire to put so much into it, because we also had such a huge playground. We had all these characters where we could tell different pieces of the story. Like, it wasn't just a union story, So it was like we had women, and then we had a lot of things I think we wanted to cover. And then because the show was brand new, you don't know, I think when you're writing, just how much is on the page. We're like, oh, we could just add a little something in here, and and then we didn't. We're like, oh, we have 100 characters. It's like, how did it get up to be? So so it was like a lot of that, and all the locations we had, we really wrote on the page this very big show. And I feel like partially it was because we were in development, so you don't necessarily, you're not writing for production, you're writing for your imagination. But then we were just so married to everything. So when we got to production, it was really okay, we had to make some very difficult choices, and what could say, and how to give everybody and all of our characters and all of our little stories like their moment to shine, even if it didn't get to be as big or as much as we had wanted to, or as we had like written on the page way back when.
Right.
Also in editing, that was also some tough cuts in the post process as well.
I'd say also, outside of the of the story structure sort of approach and stuff, I think, on the floor, knowing that like we're not in a, this is not a studio show. Like we probably were like on the road, probably like almost 80% of it, 75, I don't know, somewhere in that range. It's so, if you're moving, every 4 days in a schedule, in a long schedule like that, you have to really try to create an atmosphere that people will still feel like they're coming to something and feeling at home and feeling comfortable. And it's a difficult thing to do that when you're moving so much, because people are constantly disoriented, don't really know where they can go and sit and relax, don't really, all these kinds of things. So I think, from the get-go, Charles and I really talked about how do we make people feel welcome? How do we create an atmosphere on set that feels like a family vibe, like a community vibe, and really give people the space and the freedom to feel good and be themselves. And especially since we're talking through multiple layers of things at them, right? So that was very important. And, we know that people are dealing with the stress of pandemic. We know that people are dealing with the stress of the world. So, we did things like, we brought in counseling for people consistently throughout the whole entire thing, not just because of the world, but obviously the subject matter that we're dealing with, for the crew, for our Black actors, for our white actors, all of them could participate in this counseling. Dr. Christopher Taylor did bi-weekly sessions. We had Heather O'Neill come on, and she was, sort of there for people if they needed to talk. So it was a constant effort to try to make the production, feel comfortable, so that people could do their best work and deal with the complexity of it. And for us too. I mean, we definitely needed people to talk to.
Can I just say one challenge that I can't believe we're not talking about is block shooting 8 episodes.
That's like, what I was going to get into. Is like, I was totally
that we ever did. And I had done Mary Kills People the first season, and we block shot 6 episodes. And so there were like things that I had learned from that experience that I like brought to like tracking, what the scene was, where they had come from, where they were going and whatever. But even just with 2 more episodes, it was like 2 more episodes and like 10 times the amount of characters. So there were just so many people, and, so people, and because we were like in these different locations, as RT was saying, it's like, people maybe have 2 weeks off and then they're coming back, and it's like, oh, what was the last thing we shot? It was like madness. It was really madness.
Extremely challenging to be like, we're shooting a show that's set in a specific era, and we have so much time in a location that RT and we got to shoot out of, and we're not coming back. So the stress of like knowing that, and like little things or details you want to pick up or whatever, and wrangling these bodies and actors and setting things up. During COVID, like, there are areas where, we're only allowed to have so many people in a space, and, and then we'd have to like move people out of the space and give them a break and then come back and shoot. And so all these sort of logistic challenges came up like throughout the whole 70 plus days of shoot. Like every day, Norm, was a dogfight. and you know, ancestors were looking out for us, the cinema gods were looking out for us, like whatever it was at times, and sometimes they kind of weren't paying attention too. So
yeah. Some of us got rained out.
Back here, man, help us out. But like
rain, heat, cold, snow.
You know, and it's like actors had to come in and, you know, be shooting like a scene from episode 1 and then jumping to episode, you know, 4, and then coming back and doing like it was a really massive puzzle.
Yeah, I did not. I mean, I knew it was a marathon. I didn't realize you'd done the whole thing in one shoot, because that's terrifying. I've heard of series that do 4 or 6, but I mean, even
and then have a break.
Yeah,
and then they have a hiatus. We basically work through hours.
we push right through
our prep time, you know.
And Charles had a baby.
Yeah, yeah, an honorary Winnipegger. Something to remind me of Winnipeg for the rest of my life.
So, which months were you there? Like you mentioned, the cold winters.
April.
Yeah, for you.
We got there. No, wait. Was it March that we got that? The day that Annmarie and I got there, I think it was like the next day there was a snowstorm for 3 days. I feel like it was April, and we were just like, and so then like I think we had like a car. We didn't drive the car for like a good week because the production would just come pick us up. It was kind of exciting for us in a way because of COVID, we had done the whole show in these like silos, you know. Like I don't think RT and Charles and Arnold and Annmarie and I had been in a room together since before COVID, like for the show. And so to get to prep, it was kind of like, wow, we're all in like the same room. Yes, masked, yes, distanced, but to actually be able to like look at things together, like go to departments together in shifts, any of it, you know, even that was kind of amazing. But yes, we got there. It was like incredibly cold. And then there were days it would just be like so hot and there would be like water and fans and like, I don't know.
And the actors
no warning. Yeah. RT and I got there like in February.
Yeah, we got there in February. We got a good piece of Winnipeg, you know.
Yeah. Like basically going out to location scout and basically like we're done.
We had to shut down a location scout because like all of a sudden a blizzard happened and we were like, we can't actually see any train cars, so we need to stop this right now. Yeah.
I know at one point when we started writing, or I guess when we started our room, and of course we were in the pandemic, we did go back and we were like, let's do more reading about like the Spanish, like we just wanted to see, because we're like how like the irony, it's like obviously when we started writing the show, there was no pandemic and no pandemic was on the radar, you know. Sure. It was like 2018 when I think Annmarie rewrote that pilot. So so we went back and we were like, should we just put the masks in? Should we just go there and like set it back a little bit and whatever? But ultimately, I think it was the right fit for the show that we were making, which in many ways always had the idea of being aspirational to be like just after this time when when life is returning, you know, and then whatever. But it was interesting to read the parallels between how people reacted then and how people are reacting now.
Yeah, it's I kind of had a crash course in that over the last few months, and it's really remarkable to watch a kind of a social movement for the greater good 100 years ago and realize, oh yeah, we blew that. That's, you know, we're way on the other side of that at this point. We haven't moved forward in time as a people. We've just moved forward chronologically. Like the calendars have changed, but people have gotten worse, I think.
Yeah.
Times, totally.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, Arnold, you're an actor as well as a driver, creative driver in this project. So you're in it literally and figuratively. And what is that like? What is it like to step onto a stage that only exists because you wrote a pilot however many years ago?
How is it? I mean, RT would always go to me, so man, how you feeling, man? I would go, I don't know. Like, it was really surreal. Our first day of shooting, we're on a platform with a train. Like, that was our first day of shooting, full of, I can't remember how many extras, 60, maybe more. And it was really, really surreal. I had to actually, when no one was looking, I had to actually touch the train because it was so surreal. I mean, I didn't want to live 12 years before, 13 years before. I wanted to live right in the moments. And the group of us have like had, I can't tell you how many dinners and coffees already together. So this was really a moment for us all. But for me, I just, in a roundabout way, I kept on thinking, I wish my mother and father were alive to see this. You know what I mean? And just go, Junie, you did okay, but other than that, it was very emotional, internal thing for me.
Yeah. Muna was talking about how moving it was for her when she did her first audition, and she said you teared up, and she doesn't remember. She said she didn't remember what scene she read, but she was just so caught in the moment, and then looked at you, and it was coming back at her, and she got a sense of the responsibility she would have on the project. And Ronnie said something very similar. He's like, he felt he had to match your investment emotionally throughout, because the line was so clear about how much it meant to you and to everyone else behind the camera as well, to the entire production crew, that this was something you had to live up to.
I think for me, being an actor, in this city, sometimes like people come in, they do an audition, and then they go. And for me, I really wanted to give them everything I got in my gut. And then of course I had Charles and RT behind me, giving me the opportunity to do that. And I wanted to share, I want people to leave that room, either they got the part or not, that they felt that they had every opportunity, that it was a different experience that they've normally experienced. And the content in which Annmarie, Marsha Greene had written was they were actually auditioning for a part about their history. They weren't portraying someone from New York or Chicago or wherever. They were portraying someone about Canada. And you could tell that meant a lot to the people auditioning. So I thought I wanted to give them, like when I left those audition rooms, I was spent. Because if you have like 6 or 7 actors coming in to audition for, Marlene, I gave them everything I had for those auditions. And I just thought, the show deserved that kind of dedication. And collectively, we all gave it in our own ways.
Yeah, I think you can feel it. There are shows that exist because someone thought it would be a good idea to have it on a schedule. And then there are shows that exist because someone needed to make it and needed to tell the story. And this feels like that. And to that end, actually, I wanted to ask, what's the plan? Is there going to be a second season? It feels like there's more story that could be told if you wanted to. And if there is, how far could it go?
We are in development on a second season, and we are preparing for the opportunity of a season 2 green light, and of course that's up to a host of things, not just our passion and enthusiasm. I think what's beautiful about this series and this history, because it really, if we're telling a Union story, that's not a short story. There was a lot of years of highs and lows and coming together with the Americans, and so there's a lot going on in that story. And in terms of what we have built together as this community, and as St. Antoine being the heartbeat of our series, you want to sort of see where these lives unfold as they're kind of pulling apart and pushing together, and hopefully we've made people that the audience is invested enough to find out where they're going to go and what they're going to do, and ride the roller coaster of emotions that that they bring us through.
I think everybody, like for people in the industry, like when you're pitching a show, you are usually pitching more than one season of a show. Like people want to know that the show has legs. And so you do a fair amount of thinking going like even after you like, some broad strokes ideas of where it could go. But I remember when I was writing episode 8, it's like, I like it to feel like, if there was never any more, you feel like satisfied, but there's something in there where it's like, we could keep going and there's so much more to tell. That's like where I think, because I'm like, you don't want that like real cliffhanger and then you never see the show again. Like that's terrible. But we don't want it to be like, it's done and there's nothing more to tell. So yesterday, Olenike said 4 seasons. So she's smart. Maybe it'll be 4.
I feel like, the beauty of this project, especially for me, because it was also an education myself, in the same way that Arnold likes to say, it's like, even he didn't know about the extent of this history before, we all didn't. But it was such an education. And the beautiful thing is like, as we keep learning more, we keep learning about more stories across Canada, in all different regions. Again, Arnold has said, like, there's a Saint Antoine in nearly every province, there's a pocket of these stories, every place in this country who have contributed to our country and the fabric of our country, these people. So it's like, as we kept, Annmarie and Marsha kept writing more, we would be, and this is based kind of on this, and this is sort of based on them. We're like, wow, like, it's just a constant trove of stories. So I think this series could go on for a long, long time. It might not have to just stick with these characters. I think there are so many different stories about there is, of course, the labor movement, of course, is the Black Cross nurses, but there's so many other interesting figures that have made a mark on this country from all over it. So I think that, the series could go on in many different ways, all over the place. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it's not like this sort of resistance to oppressive systems and the systemic sort of embodiment that and policies and the way that, if we're just talking about Canada continues to form itself on that. We're out of it. We're not out of it today. So I think with these characters and what they're doing, it's like one thing leads to another movement. It's like, it's not like they find a space where they actually unionize in that story or Marlene, builds her clinic and the struggle's over. Like, so, and they have a son and he's got to grow up and he's going to have ambitions of his own. And so I think, as I've spoken with other our cast in the past or through this process, it's like, it would be a tragedy if these characters aren't given the opportunity to conclude their stories in some way, shape, or form, whether that's 3 seasons, 4 seasons, 5 seasons, a spin-off, a whatever. It's like, I think there's the canvas has been set for Norm, like, just because we've done this, it's not like we've done something and it's like, oh, that's good, we don't have to do anything like this for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Negroes.
Yeah. It's like there's so much story, like everyone's saying, and Archie just said, there's so many stories, individual and collective stories, just right here out of this one project that can, that has legs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could go season to season, or you could just go in a straight line. And then at the end, you'll realize you've got like the Dickensian aspect, that great line from The Wire, where you've got 1,000 moving parts.
I appreciate you, man.
Well, I'm scared because that's going to kill somebody. That's a huge amount of writing.
Well, you know what? Hopefully there's 15 more Black showrunners that can jump on board, male or female, to do the gig. Hopefully that's what spawns from this show, and we won't have that fear. will have that opportunity.
Yeah.
I just always want to give flowers. So I want to give flowers like to our amazing production crew in Winnipeg, Réjean Labrie and his team, the production designers, like absolutely recreated, a sense of Saint Antoine and in the streets of Winnipeg, and shouts out to that whole team and our young genius DP, Jordan Oram, for just coming in. I always say pressure makes diamonds, and that kid delivered, man. He's a young genius, man. So he made such beautiful images for us. Our costume designers, Heather, and her team, our beautiful hair and makeup team, Patricia Cuthbert coming in, and then Tremaine and a bunch of the other ladies sort of taken over. Just really, really stunning work that elevates everything that we did. And then of course, Jennifer Quadja and Sienna and Inferno for backing us with it. It's just anyways, those are shouts outs.
I just want to shout out, and you don't have to put this in because it's not sexy, but I just want to shout out the production. I think the thing about shooting in COVID is the job of your production manager, your production coordinator, your AD, people around us, to bring, when you have 100 people who need to get tested, who need to get masked, who need to get blown here, who need to the amount of coordination that people had to do on the show so that we could be artists is honestly, it's amazing. And, I just feel all of these people that RT mentioned, of course, were wonderful and did amazing work, but it just was such a huge, it would have been a huge show in any circumstances, but certainly in these, it just was even crazier. And we're just so, so grateful to them for making it happen.
I'm amazed at how complicated this is, and how, you guys brought in Amel from London, right? He auditioned over Zoom, and it wasn't until he got here that you were shooting with him, and that was in 2020. It must have been, right?
And shout out to Shane, who started a company a couple of years ago, who was in charge of our COVID stuff. He kept the show running for us.
Oh yeah. I got my first vaccine in Winnipeg.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, same.
Toronto, and it was I was I couldn't get the paperwork. Shane was I'll get it for you. And it's on top of everything else, these people are calling, Manitoba Health, trying to get the paperwork for us. It just is such a, it's just so nice. People cared about the show so much, and had to, because it was very hard. And so, we were just so grateful.
Yeah, the same passion that we had, people took on, right? And don't forget Krista and Tracy from Hair. Want to give them a shout out. Yeah. Chris, our choreographer as well too. We could go on, man.
You've seen the credits. You've seen the hundreds of.
Yeah, it's we set the record for Canadian television of the most front credits on any television series. It's a testament to what it takes to pull this massive, beautiful monster of a project off, and how again, I would just say that it was a massive learning curve for myself of, we all believe that we can collaborate in a certain way. And I think that it was a challenge to kind of find our rhythm and how we work together and stuff. But the beautiful thing is that I'll honestly say I had these moments, even during the mix, of just being wow, everyone's getting a voice, there's space for everyone, which is a very, very unconventional process. And we never gave up, because there were so many moments that I think I had a friend, a mentor of mine, who, when I told him about this project and just getting his advice and certain things, he said, brother, this project will make the most experienced people cry. And I was like, thanks, man. I wasn't really looking for that kind of thing. It's like, what do I do? It's like, well, and so, but we all were like, shared a real deep level of passion and commitment to upholding a story that speaks to our ancestors and our lineage and who we are and how we got here. And yeah, so I think that was we all bought into that, and I think we found a way to realize something that I think stands alone in a certain aspect of Canadian television.
Thanks to Arnold, Annmarie, Marsha, Charles, and RT for joining me for this episode, and to Winston Ma for putting us all together. The Porter premieres on CBC and CBC Gem this Monday, February 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern. And you can find my cover interview with co-stars Ronnie Rowe Jr. and Muna Traore, illustrated with some magnificent photographs by Nick LaChance, at nowtoronto.com/movies. Now What will be back next Friday. Until then, keep an eye on nowtoronto.com for news and culture as it happens, and email us at web@nowtoronto.com with questions or comments. Wear a mask, keep your distance, and please get your booster. I'll see you soon.